Hi, this is Rabbi Tzvi Mandel from Kabbalah Israel, community of Jewish friends, and I'd like to say hi to Israel. So we'll go back a little bit on the subjects that we were speaking about today during the morning. So the parsha starts with Elo Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram held des Yitzchak. This is the story of the children of Yitzchak, the son of Avram, and Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. What does that mean? So the Archaim HaKadosh goes at length to explain that not only Rivka, but also Yitzchak, according to nature, was not able to have children. They were an akar and an akara. He can't have children, she can have children, which actually is a machlokes Rishonim, according to the Balaturim further on, at the pasuk ki akarahi, pasuk verse chafei, says that some hold not like that, whether Yitzchak was an akar or whether he wasn't. But anyway, so as the Archaim HaKadosh says by Parshas Akedah, that through the altar and the sacrifice that Yitzchak did by lying on the altar, he received a new neshama, a new nefesh, which was able to have a child. And it was in the schus, in the merit of Avraham, that he was able to have a child. We won't go into that now. The dichotomy, the difference between Yitzchak and Avraham, Yitzchak being the FFB, we'll say, from birth, and Avraham being the BT, the Bial Tshuva. Says the Heilig Arachaim, unbelievable thing. Yitzchak Avinu, basically our father Yitzchak, it doesn't say in the Torah much about his tests and his righteousness, his greatness, even though it says he, in fact, like we just said, was ready to die for Hashem on the altar. But others hold, like the Ibn Ezra says in last week's Parsha, that it was against his will. Balkar Chaynekad. Nobody else holds like that, obviously. And Avram Avinu is known about all the tests that he went through, the 10 tests, of course. And the Torah Kedusha says, Eila Toldos with a Vav. This is also Yitzchak's story, that he was as great as his father Avram, even though it doesn't say it openly in the Torah. The Archaim HaKadosh then says, Al kol zeh, lo tishve ma'ilosei l'shel Avram, ki hu ha'av zikalei. There's no one that you could compare to Avram Avinu. His father was an idol worshiper. He strengthened himself so strong to reach up to his creator. Umailas Avram niskava, and the virtueness, the highness of Avram's level is very high. Therefore, Yeshaya Navi, prophet Isaiah in 41:8 calls Avram Havai. We say it in the Kol Mekadesh Friday night. Avram who loves Hashem. Who kadam liyas oyev l'kainai kadam sheyera Hashem elav ahavasei boy. He was first to love his Creator before his Creator opened up his eyes to his love. Who radaf achrav. He ran after to seek Hashem bizatzmus nifla, with a wondrous strength, something we can't even understand. Mashenken Yitzchak, not so Yitzchak. Ki bona boy Avram binin ahavas hatoiv. That Avram Avinu gave him such a great upbringing to love what's good. When he opened his eyes, he was already had open Ruach HaKodesh, Ruach Hashem, something very high and beyond us. Rivka had this negativity about her. She was Ben Terach. She was the daughter of Terach. Even though Avram was the son of Terach, and even though Avram did tshuva at the end of his life, Terach did tshuva at the end of his life, as the Medrash says in Bereshit Rabbah 38. But still, till close to the end of his life, he was the son of a Rasha, and his father gave birth to him while he was still a Rasha, so to say. So this is the back and forth about Avram Avinu, but it definitely builds up who Avram Avinu was. And the fact that the Torah brings out all the negativity about Rivka, who her father was, who her ugly brother was, and the city that she came from was full of evil people, says this is not to bring out the Pchisis Rivka, God forbid, Chashem, that she was a less person. Just as far as tefillah is concerned, as far as prayers are concerned, the yichus is important. Where one comes from is important. But still in all, as we said before, as Rabbi Cohen says in his sefer, I had this small sefer Ala Torah years ago, then I gave it away to my son Aaron, and I just found another copy of it in the second-hand store in Muncie. He says it so sweetly. He says it from who? From David Amshinova. Avram was davening in one corner, and he says, "Mi ani u'ma yichusi mazchusi, who am I?" And actually, Rivka would say that, right? And I don't have any merits, but Yitzchak, my son, my husband, is a tzaddik ben tzaddik. It's a son of a tzaddik. He's fit and he's pure and holy. And Yitzchak would stand in the other corner and say, "Anochi kitanti mikol achsadim, who am I? What am I? Compared to the greatness of my father and my great-grandfather, my grandfather, Yitzchak and Avram, and Sarah, my mother, what's the chiddush? What's so great about me being Yiras Shamayim?" Look at my wife, Rivka the Tzidkani. She's Shoshana ben Achaychim, like a rose among thorns. This Tzaddikus Hadar. So that was that point that we brought out a little bit. Another point that the Chaim HaKadosh says that the whole reason why Rivka had to go through this pain was because Hashem, the Medrash says in Bereshit Rabbah 60, Samach, Kadesh lo yirike b'chasai tasa masa toiv. Rivka shoyis hakar l'tzad berchas Lavan, since our father Lavan blessed her, no one should think that it was his blessing that caused her to become pregnant. So she had to go through all this because of that. I'll read you an interesting piece by the Eretz Tzvi, the Kozlagava, who was killed by the Nazis in Machshemon B'Zichron, Rosh Yeshiva of Lublin. Kozlagava, Rabbi Tzvi Fruma, Hashem Yinkum Damei. So he says as follows. The children were pushing each other in her womb, and she said, "Im ken lo mazeh anochi." If that's the case, what do I need this for? The Gemara and Medrash in many places speaks about how important it is for one, God forbid, that's going through pain to be samech, be yisurim, to be joyous with the pain that Hashem gives the person and to receive it with love. And God forbid, the punishment for one who doesn't mean that one doesn't have to go to the doctor and get healed. But it does mean that, God forbid, someone goes through pain, it shouldn't be in a way, rebellious way. On the contrary, the Shulchan Aruch says in Simon Reish Chav Beis 222, Paragraph 3. Chayiv adam levarach al hara b'das shleima. One must bless Hashem about the bad that happens to him, b'das shleima, with a, let's call it a mature intellect, b'nefesh chafetza, and with his full heart. Sometimes one could do something with his mind, but not so much with the heart. B'nefesh chafetza, his full heart, his full soul. Interesting thing is, this is the language that the Rambam learns also in Hilchos Tshuva, where he speaks about how you're supposed to be meichel someone, how you forgive someone. B'leiv shalom u'v'nefesh chafetza. Leiv shalom means with the full heart, I'm meichel you. I forgive you for the bad you did to me. Nefesh chafetza means that the soul even would want this bad that was done to me by you because of the kapar saveris, because of it helping me in my sins being forgiven, let's say, because of what I grew through it. So nefesh chafetza. Nefesh chafetza k'der Hashem v'arach b'simcha ala toiva. Like someone benches Hashem, blesses Hashem with joy when something good happens to him. Ki hara la'ovdei Hashem yisimchaschem v'toivasam. Because something bad that happens to someone that worships Hashem, if we want to consider ourselves worshippers of Hashem, if we want to consider ourselves spiritual people, there's a word that goes down around in the Western culture, spiritual people. Working with Baal Tshuva for so many years, I've heard those words. Do you keep mitzvahs? Do you keep Shabbos? Have you learned in your life? No, but I'm a spiritual person. What does a spiritual person mean? Spiritual person means that you're connected to God, connected to Hashem, and you're aware of it, and you therefore want to do what He says, at least want to. So, something bad that happens to someone that worships Hashem, that's spiritual, this is his simcha, this is his joy, says the Shulchan Aruch. And this is good for him. And kivin shemekabel me'ahava masher gazal of Hashem, since he receives and takes with love what Hashem has decreed upon him. Nimtzit comes out shekabolas razu oivedas Hashem shows simcha loy. With this receiving of the beard, taking upon the self, is in itself an avodas Hashem, the worship of Hashem. This joy. So he says an unbelievable thing like this, the Kozlagava. Someone who rebels against Hashem because of something that happened to him proves that he really doesn't believe in Hashem's Hashgacha Prati, in Hashem's individual supervision, that Hashem knows exactly what to do to all of us, how to treat us. Because if he did believe in this Hashgacha, then he would be joyous. For any reason that you can think of. If he knows for sure that he didn't sin, so these are Yishurim Shalava. These are pain out of love of Hashem for us. And the Talmud says that there's no even, you can't even evaluate how much reward someone gets for Yisurim Shalahava. And if he does know that he sinned, then it's a great good. It's a great taiva. It's a great favor that Hashem does us to cleanse us so that we should be loved more, so to say, quote unquote, by Hashem, so that we should be closer to Hashem. So he says as follows: the mitzvah of Anochi Hashem Leikecha, I am God your God, which is the mitzvah of Amunin and Shkach in Hashem, believing in Hashem's supervision upon us as a people in general, upon the world, and even more specifically on the Jewish people, even more you and me, every individual Jew, has a special hashgacha from Hashem. And therefore the Gemara says, the Talmud says in Makkos 24, the great prophet, the last prophet, said that the whole Yiddishkeit stands on one thing, tzaddik b'emunasai yichya. through the emunah that a tzaddik has, the belief, the faith in Hashem that the righteous have, this gives them life. Now, let's take this to the psukim that we're learning here. So the Avos HaKadoshim is a Mois HaKadoshim, the holy patriarchs and matriarchs. The whole life was trying to come to this Tachlis HaShlema, this purpose in life, in a whole and real way, that there should not be even a movement of the body, of the hand, of a blink of the eye that should be against emunah, faith in Hashem, belief in Hashem. Now, when Rivka Imenu, our Holy Mother Rivka, felt this horrible pain in her womb, and she felt that she's not receiving it with the right love to Hashem the way it should be, this got her very angry. She thought to herself, my whole life I'm working, I've gone through so much pain. Like the Torah says, from her parents, from her siblings, from the city that she came from, she was fighting this to be on the level of real emunah with simcha, to be makabel yisurim b'ahava with simcha, the way it fits her level. And therefore she said, I haven't raised myself to the right level of Anoichi, referring to the Anoichi that we're going to have in the Parsha of Asaras HaDibros, the Ten Commandments, Anoichi Hashem Lekecha, I'm God, your God. I haven't reached my level of Anoichi Hashem Lekecha. Isn't that beautiful? And perhaps I didn't worship Hashem with enough hiddenness, she says. She would have been, so the Zeh, proving to something in front of you. Okay, that's a side issue. So she said it must be that since I have this Esav Arasha in my womb, and Uba Yerech Imay, Chazal say, that a baby in a mother's womb is part of the mother herself. Ish Sarva Oyev Hara Zeh, this horrible person. And it's part of every single limb in my body. Therefore, I can't be Mekabel D'Almach Shemaim of Anoichi. I'm not on the level that I would like to be in Yiddishkeit, in belief and faith in Hashem. I think it's very beautiful. As we go on before Sheni, Abisha says to Yitzchak, don't go down to Mitzrayim, to Egypt. I want you to stay in Israel. I will be with you. I'll bless you, because you and your seed, your future generations, will be given these lands that I've already given the Shvuah. I already swore to Avram, your father. Will multiply your children like the stars of the heaven. And all the nations of the world will bless your children because of the adherence that Avram had to Hashem's voice and kept my mitzvahs. Says the Sephora something very beautiful. The adherence that he had to do what I commanded, and he always, Vayishma Mishmarti, he heeded what I wanted him to heed. Asa Tomen HaMishmeres HaMiuchedes Li. Avram always did something very special that's really something that came from me, Hashem says. Shehi Ligmel Chesed, to do chesed, to love people and to do good to people. Ka'amrei Kol Orches Hashem Chesed V'emes. Ulohariz Chatam Baderech, also to bring people close to Hashem, to make Bali Tshuva. V'zeh Asa Kashakar B'Shem Hashem. As we know, he went all over and he shouted out that Hashem's the real God. And he himself kept my mitzvahs. That the Bnei Noach Shenitztavu b'nei Noach. Chazal tell us he did the whole Torah, but obviously he probably taught only the mitzvahs of the Bnei Noach, that they were required to do, the 7 special mitzvahs for all the peoples of the world. So therefore he was no darish for no mekayim k'mayfus l'rabim. He practiced what he preached, and this was a big Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying of Hashem's name. Another attribute of Avraham Avinu that's not spelled out so much, I guess. The land of Israel. So we'll go back to the Kozlagova. Don't go down to Mitzrayim because you're supposed to be in the land of Israel. Says Rashi, because you are an Oila Tmima. You are this special sacrifice that Jews sacrificed to Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash, in the temple. It's called Ha'olah. It's completely for Hashem. Nobody gets to eat part of it, not the Kohanim, the priests, and not the owner of the sacrifice. And therefore, Ein Chutz La'aretz Kedai Lach. It's not befitting that you should go out of Eretz Yisrael. So he says as follows. Everybody knows the Talmud says in Ksubas Kuf Yud 110b that out of Eretz Yisrael, Chutz La'aretz goes under the jurisdiction of the nations of the world. The angels that, so to say, represent the non-Jews are the ones that sort of run out of Eretz Yisrael. And Eretz Yisrael, land of Israel alone, is under Hashem's jurisdiction only. No one else has any part in what goes on in Israel. And for this reason, the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, living in Israel like we should all be, is greater than the whole Torah. Because this mitzvah is just like, as we said, the mitzvah of Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God your God, which is the root of all mitzvahs, as the Zohar says in Parshas Yisrael. And the prohibition to go back to Mitzrayim, to go back to Egypt, is like the transgression of the sin of worshiping Avodah Zarah, Lo Yilcha Elohim Acherem Al Panai, which includes all the lavin, all the sins. And this says openly in the Zohar in Tikkun 22. Now, even though all the lands out of Eretz Yisrael are under non-Jewish jurisdiction, so to say, whatever that means, but the Ritva, one of the leading Rishonim, the early commentaries, the Helik Ritva, in Yom Lamed Ches Amud Aleph, 38a, says that only going back to Egypt from Israel, from one who lives in Eretz Yisrael, has this lav, has this sin of going from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, not from other countries. There is such a view. We don't, whether we hold like that, we don't paskin like that, but there is such a view in the Torah. Why? Because Mitzrayim is exactly the opposite of Eretz Yisrael. Egypt is the Ervas Haaretz. From all the lands, this was the lowest, the most impure, and therefore from all the Golusim that the Yidden had to go through, all the exiles, Egypt is the source of all the exiles. So therefore he said that not only Yitzchak, but every Jew, he says, Kol Yisrael is Yitzchak Avinu. And every Jew is Kula Kol Hashem, should and will be completely only for Hashem, nothing else. No other kavanah, no other reason, just to worship Hashem. And a person is the Olam Katan, is a small world, and he includes the whole world. So therefore, when he lives in Eretz Yisrael, he performs the mitzvah of Anochi Hashem Elokecha to its best. it's wrong for him to go out of Eretz Yisrael, and especially to go to Mitzrayim. And according to how much a person has Emunah and B'tachon Hashem and all his things, according to that much, he is connected to Eretz Yisrael and connected to Hashem. Very beautiful. There's much more. We'll stop here right now. Have a great night.